Service hallways where you belong. Move, or security drags you out. He didn't wait for her to answer. A fistful of cake slammed into Dr. Simone Rivers's face and dragged sideways, frosting grinding into her lashes and cheek, like he was wiping grime off a countertop. His mother laughed, bright and approving, while his father chuckled and lifted his glass, proud of the spectacle their son was making. "Look at her," the boy announced to the donors. "All that polish. Still can't act grateful." Simone's hands stayed at her sides. She didn't flinch. She didn't wipe it away. She just held his stare, breathing slow. And none of them knew their $700 million dream was seconds from being erased by her next word. Before continuing, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. Dr. Simone Rivers paused at the entrance of the Grand Meridian Ballroom, taking in the sparkle of crystal chandeliers and the sea of designer gowns. Camera flashes popped like tiny explosions, momentarily blinding her. She adjusted the sleeve of her deep blue evening dress, feeling the weight of the moment. "Remember the morality clause in Section 8.3, Naomi Pierce murmured beside her, sleek in charcoal gray. "You were right to insist on that one." "Always am," Simone replied quietly, her smile camera-ready, but her eyes scanning the room like radar. $700 million. That's what tonight's partnership was worth. More importantly, it meant jobs. Real ones, with benefits and growth paths for communities that kept getting hollow promises. Dr. Rivers! Tilden Wexley's voice boomed across the marble floor as he strode toward them, every inch the finance titan in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. His wife Maribel glided at his side, dripping in diamonds that could fund a small nation. "So pleased you could join us." "The pleasure's mine," Simone responded smoothly, extending her hand. Tilden shook it a beat too briefly. "Oh, dear." Maribel touched Simone's arm with manicured fingers. "Would you mind terribly asking the kitchen about the champagne service? We seem to be running low at table 6. Simone's smile didn't waver. "I'm actually here as a partner, Mrs. Wexley, but I'm sure the staff will be happy to help." "Oh!" Maribel's laugh tinkled like expensive ice. "My mistake entirely. Though while you're here, could you check if Dr. Rivers will be needed at the head table?" Naomi cut in professionally. "For the partnership announcement." Tilden's expression flickered. Of course. Though, if you wouldn't mind just confirming with security about the guest list." "I believe that's Brandon's job," Simone said pleasantly, naming the actual event coordinator. "Shall we head to our seats?" "I'm looking forward to the presentation." They moved through the crowd like a current of tension, Simone noting every sideways glance and whispered comment. The ballroom was a masterpiece of old money. Gold leaf on the ceiling, antique mirrors on the walls, and table settings that probably cost more than some people's monthly rent. At the center, an elevated stage held a row of chairs for key participants. Simone approached her assigned seat, clearly marked Rivers Axis Technologies on the golden placard. A hostess in black rushed forward, hand outstretched. "Oh, no, I'm sorry," the woman said with rehearsed concern. "There must be some confusion. The partner seating is reserved for—" Naomi smoothly produced the printed seating chart from her clutch. "Dr. Rivers is exactly where she should be. Perhaps you'd like to double-check your materials?" Laughter rippled from the surrounding tables. Not warm, not welcoming, but measuring. Testing. Simone settled into her chair with practiced grace, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes. She'd been in rooms like this her whole career, where power dressed itself in politeness and cruelty wore a smile. From a nearby table, Graham Wexley watched the scene unfold, swirling expensive scotch in a crystal glass. He couldn't be more than 19, but his eyes held the casual entitlement of someone who had never heard the word no stick. He studied Simone with the detached interest of a cat watching a bird through a window, probably wondering if it would be more fun to pounce now or later. The first course arrived, something delicate involving truffle foam and gold leaf. Simone ate carefully, maintaining light conversation while monitoring the room's subtle choreography. Servers moved in practiced patterns. Photographers circulated strategically. Everything felt just a fraction too arranged. "Your work in tech education is fascinating," said the woman to her left, a board member of something or other. "Almost like a charity, isn't it?" "Actually, it's a profit center," Simone corrected kindly. "Our apprenticeship program has a 93% placement rate and generates significant returns through innovation and talent retention." "How resourceful," the woman replied, in a tone that made it sound like a disease. As dinner progressed, the pattern became clear. Every conversation was a trap, every comment loaded with double meanings. Simone navigated each one with the precision of someone who had spent decades in rooms where one wrong word could unravel years of work. Finally, dessert carts began rolling in, their silver domes gleaming under the chandeliers. Maribel Wexley made a small gesture, and a photographer edged closer to the head table, adjusting his lens with careful nonchalance. Graham Wexley rose from his seat, glass in hand. The room hushed expectantly. His smile was bright, practiced, and completely empty of warmth. "Friends, partners, distinguished guests," he began, his voice carrying that peculiar mix of youth and authority that came from never doubting his right to be heard. "I'd like to propose a toast to new ventures, new partnerships, and," his eyes fixed on Simone with predatory amusement, "new lessons in how things work around here." The dessert cart rolled to a stop beside the head table, its silver dome catching the spotlight like a beacon. A hush fell over the ballroom as servers positioned themselves with choreographed precision. Graham Wexley set down his glass and moved toward Simone with the fluid confidence of someone who had never faced consequences. "Dr. Rivers," he said, voice pitched to Carrie, "I believe you should have the first taste. It's a special recipe, meant to leave an impression." Simone felt Naomi shift beside her, protective instincts kicking in. But Deke Ransom appeared as if summoned, his bulk strategically positioned between Naomi and the table. Two more security guards drifted closer, their earpieces gleaming. The server lifted the dome with a flourish, revealing an elaborate chocolate torte decorated with spun sugar and edible flowers. It was beautiful, expensive, and somehow threatening in its perfection. Camera phones rose around the room like fireflies. "Come now." Graham's smile was razor-sharp as he lifted a dessert fork. "Don't be shy. We're all friends here, aren't we?" Simone maintained her professional smile, though her shoulder muscles tightened. She'd seen that look before, in boardrooms, at conferences, in every space where someone thought they could make her flinch. "You're very kind," she said evenly, "but perhaps we should wait for everyone to be served." Graham laughed, the sound bright and cruel. "Oh, Dr. Rivers, always so proper." He picked up a slice of cake with his bare hands, frosting smearing between his fingers. "Sometimes proper isn't the point. Sometimes the point is understanding where you fit." It happened fast. Graham stepped closer, invading her space with practiced ease. The cake connected with her face in a cold, wet smear. Frosting ground into her cheekbone, caught in her eyelashes, dragged across her carefully applied makeup. The impact wasn't hard, but the intention was clear. This wasn't a prank. This was a message. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then, starting from the Wexleys' table, laughter began to spread. Not shocked laughter, not embarrassed laughter, but the practiced, elegant sound of people who knew exactly what this was and approved. "There," Graham said softly, still too close. "Now you match the decor." Tilden Wexley's deep chuckle carried across the space. Maribel covered her mouth with perfectly manicured fingers, eyes dancing with mean delight. The room took its cue from them, transforming the assault into entertainment. "She'll learn," a donor at the next table muttered, loud enough to be heard. "They always do, eventually." Simone remained perfectly still, feeling the cold slide of frosting down her neck. A diamond-draped woman nearby clicked her tongue and leaned forward. "Dear," she said to Simone, not Graham, "don't make a scene, it's just a bit of fun." Deke Ransom shifted his weight, one hand hovering near his belt. His stance screamed ex-law enforcement, the kind who knew exactly how to make self-defense look like aggression. His eyes locked onto Simone, practically willing her to give him an excuse. The frosting was getting in her mouth now, sickeningly sweet. Simone could feel her pulse in her temples, could hear her mother's voice from years ago. "They expect us to break. That's why we don't." With deliberate slowness, she picked up a crisp white napkin. The fabric was expensive, real linen, probably imported. She wiped her face in careful, methodical strokes, maintaining eye contact with Graham the entire time. His smile flickered, just slightly. He'd wanted tears, or rage, or humiliation. Instead, he got poise. The room's energy shifted. Laughter faded into uncertain silence. Simone rose from her chair, every movement measured and precise. Even with cake in her hair, she managed to make Graham look small. "The microphone, please," she said, voice carrying clearly through the tension. The nearest server hesitated, glancing at the Wexleys. Deke took a half-step forward, but Simone's calm was its own kind of authority. The microphone appeared in her hand, and the remaining chuckles died in throats suddenly gone dry. Graham retreated a step, that familiar confusion crossing his face, the look of someone who'd never had their fun interrupted before. Tilden and Maribel's smiles became fixed, brittle things, as Simone adjusted her grip on the microphone. The spotlight swung fully onto her now, catching the glitter of frosting still clinging to her cheekbone. But somehow, impossibly, she made it look like war paint instead of humiliation. The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would happen when dignity faced down cruelty. Naomi, still blocked by security but watching intently, allowed herself a small, fierce smile. She knew that look in her friend's eyes. It was the same look Simone had worn before every major victory in their company's history. Absolute certainty wrapped in steel. The sound system hummed to life as Simone raised the microphone. The silence in the room was absolute now, heavy with anticipation and something like fear. Not fear of Simone, fear of what it meant that she wasn't afraid of them. The spotlight caught the glitter of frosting still clinging to Simone's jawline as she held the microphone, her composure a silent rebuke to the room's manufactured laughter. In the shadows near the service entrance, Naomi's fingers flew across her phone screen. "Be ready. Now." Attorney Selena Ward's response was immediate. "Standing by with documentation." Simone's voice filled the ballroom, clear and measured. "I want to thank the Wexley Foundation for this illuminating display." She paused, letting the words settle. "Not for the cake, though I'm sure it's excellent, but for showing us exactly what this partnership would mean." Graham's smirk wavered slightly. He hadn't expected complete sentences, let alone strategy. "You see," Simone continued, "public humiliation isn't actually humor. It's a test. It shows us what a room will tolerate, what behavior we're expected to accept as normal." Her gaze swept across the gathered faces, noting who looked away first. "Some of you laughed. Some of you stayed silent. And some of you told me not to make a scene. After watching a grown man smear food on my face, like I was his property. Maribel Wexley's perfectly lined lips parted in protest. But Simone wasn't finished. The $700 million partnership agreement between Rivers Axis Technologies and Wexley Consolidated contains very specific language about professional conduct and moral character. She turned slightly, and Selina Ward materialized from the crowd, contract binder in hand. Section 7, Paragraph 4 states that either party may terminate the agreement immediately if the other demonstrates behavior inconsistent with basic human dignity or professional standards. Tilden Wexley's laugh boomed across the space, practiced and dismissive. My dear Dr. Rivers, surely you're being overly sensitive. It was a moment of youthful high spirits, nothing more. His tone dripped with false concern. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, when emotions aren't so heated. There's nothing to discuss privately, Simone replied. The frosting on her face caught the light as she turned to address the room directly. Rivers Axis Technologies is exercising its right to terminate this partnership agreement, effective immediately. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. Several phones live streaming the gala suddenly pointed straight at her. Selina stepped forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she opened the contract to the relevant page. The termination is being recorded and witnessed, Selina announced, her legal training evident in every crisp syllable. All parties present are hereby notified that the agreement's dissolution is based on documented violations of conduct standards. Graham's confident grin cracked at the edges. He glanced at his father, seeking direction, but Tilden was focused on damage control, already moving toward the microphone with his hands raised in a placating gesture. Now, he said, reaching for the microphone. Let's not be hasty. These technical details can always be worked out among friends. Simone kept her grip on the microphone, turning slightly so his attempt to grab it would be obvious to everyone watching. We are not friends, Mr. Wexley. We were potential business partners, and you just showed me exactly how you treat partners. Maribel glided forward, her designer dress rustling as she tried to position herself between Simone and the cameras. Darling, you're absolutely right to feel upset. Why don't we move this conversation somewhere more private? I'm sure we can smooth over any misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Simone replied, her voice carrying clearly despite Maribel's attempt to shield her from view. Your son's behavior was deliberate. Your laughter was deliberate. And my response is equally deliberate. Naomi had made her way around the security line and now stood at Simone's shoulder, tablet in hand. The termination notice has been transmitted to all board members and relevant regulatory bodies, she announced, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. The room's atmosphere shifted palpably. Donors who had been laughing minutes ago now whispered behind their hands, reassessing alliances. Several board members who were present began checking their phones, reading the notification in real time. $700 million, Graham said, trying to sound amused but landing somewhere closer to strained. That's quite a tantrum over a little cake. No, Simone corrected him. That's quite a price to pay for thinking you could purchase my dignity, along with my company's technology. She handed the microphone to a nearby server, then straightened her jacket with precise movements. Selina, please ensure all documentation is properly filed. Naomi, we're done here. As Simone turned to leave, Graham stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper meant only for her ears. Good. That's exactly what we needed. Naomi, falling into step beside Simone, felt the first real chill of the night. Something in Graham's tone cut through the satisfaction of their exit, suggesting layers of calculation they hadn't yet uncovered. The click of their heels echoed across the marble floor as they walked toward the exit. Behind them, Tilden was already working the room, trying to spin the story. Maribel had her phone out, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. The hundreds of guests who had witnessed the scene were dividing into camps, some already crafting social media posts, others hurriedly making calls to distance themselves from the fallout. Security guards stepped aside as Simone approached the door, their earlier aggression replaced with uncertainty. The night air hit her face as she stepped outside, the frosting still sticky against her skin, but her spine was straight, and her eyes were clear. The heavy doors of the ballroom swung shut behind them, muffling the chaos inside. For 3 blessed seconds, there was silence. Then Simone's phone exploded with notifications, a cascade of buzzes and pings that made the device jump in her clutch. "That's not normal," Naomi said, already pulling out her tablet. Her fingers flew across the screen, pulling up social media feeds. Suddenly, she stopped scrolling, her face draining of color. "Simone, look at this." A video was spreading across platforms like wildfire. The thumbnail showed Simone's face twisted in what looked like rage, an expression she knew she'd never made. The caption read, "Tech CEO snaps at charity event. Attacks teenage donor." "That's not what happened," Simone said, her voice steady despite the knot forming in her stomach. "Play it." The video started with Graham approaching, but the footage jumped and skipped, cutting out crucial seconds. His initial reach toward her face was missing entirely. Instead, it showed Simone appearing to jerk forward first, the cake smearing looking like a consequence rather than a cause. The audio had been spliced, inserting what sounded like an angry outburst before the cake incident. Comments were flooding in. "Who does she think she is? Talk about unprofessional. Typical angry black woman stereotype. Can't take a joke? Should lose her job for this." Naomi's fingers were already dialing. "We need Juno Park. Now." She put the phone on speaker as they walked briskly toward their waiting car. Juno Park answered on the second ring. "I'm already watching it blow up." "This isn't random." "How bad?" Simone asked, sliding into the back seat while Naomi joined her. The video's been shared by 37 seemingly unrelated accounts in the last 4 minutes, all with substantial followings, all with slightly different outraged commentary. "That's not organic. That's coordinated." Juno's voice was clipped, professional. "There are bot networks amplifying specific hashtags. Rivers Rage is trending. Sadame Stew. Cancel Rivers Axis just started climbing." Through the car window, Simone could see Graham standing at the ballroom's entrance, phone in hand, that same satisfied smirk on his face. He gave her a little wave as their car pulled away. "The timing is too perfect," Naomi said, still monitoring the feeds. The video was ready to go. The accounts were prepped. They were waiting for her to react. "Look at the donor statements coming in," Juno directed. "Notice anything?" Simone scanned the rapidly appearing posts. Major donors to the Wexley Foundation were expressing their shock and disappointment in her behavior. The language was eerily similar across different posts. "They're working from a script," she realized. "Exactly." Juno's keyboard clicked rapidly in the background. "This isn't just damage control. This is a prepared campaign. Graham Wexley's fingerprints are all over it. He runs dozens of burner accounts, coordinates with influencer networks. He's turned online manipulation into an art form." Simone's phone buzzed with a new message. Board member Theodore Walsh. "Emergency meeting. Tonight. No exceptions." "They're trying to force my hand," Simone said, the pieces clicking into place. The public humiliation wasn't the end goal. "They wanted me to react." "Your face is still trending," Naomi reported grimly. "The clips are getting shorter, more edited. They're cutting out everything except your cancellation announcement, making it look like an emotional outburst." Another wave of notifications hit their phones. Media requests, investor concerns, partnership inquiries. The narrative was spreading faster than they could track it. "This is what Graham does," Juno explained, their voice tight with recognition. "He manufactures reality, creates crises, then his family swoops in to solve them, usually by acquiring companies at a discount during the chaos." Simone touched her cheek, where the frosting had dried to a tacky film. The humiliation was transforming, morphing from a physical assault into something more insidious. They were turning her dignity into a weapon against her. "Set up a war room," she instructed Naomi. "Call in the core team. We need—" Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from her general counsel that made her blood run cold. "They're invoking the continuity addendum." "The what?" Naomi leaned over to read the message. "That wasn't in the final contract review." Juno's typing grew more intense. "Send me the full contract. Now." The car turned onto the expressway as Naomi forwarded the documents. The city lights blurred past the windows, but Simone barely noticed. She was mentally reviewing every page of the partnership agreement, every clause they'd negotiated. "Found it," Juno announced after a tense minute. "Buried in subsection 12D. A continuity addendum, triggered by public disruption or reputational damage. It's written like a standard stability clause, but the language— this is a trapdoor. If invoked, it gives them emergency voting rights and temporary operational control." "But we canceled the contract," Naomi protested. "I watched Simone do it." "That's what they wanted," Simone said softly, understanding flooding in. "They needed me to cancel publicly. The cancellation itself triggers the addendum. They're not trying to save the partnership. They're using the cancellation to try to take control of my company." The car's interior fell silent except for the sound of more notifications arriving. Each ping another drop of poison in the air, another strand in the web they'd walked into. The 47th floor of Rivers Axis Technologies was eerily quiet at midnight. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the glass-walled conference room where Simone sat with her crisis team. Attorney Selena Ward methodically arranged documents across the polished table, her normally pristine suit showing signs of the hasty summons that had brought her here. "Walk me through exactly what happened," Selena said, not looking up from the contract pages she was scanning. Simone touched her cheek again. She could still feel phantom stickiness even though she'd scrubbed her face clean. "Graham Wexley smeared cake on me in front of 200 people. I canceled the deal citing the morality clause. Now they're claiming I triggered some hidden provision, which shouldn't exist," Naomi added from her position by the windows. The city sparkled below, deceptively peaceful. "We went through that contract line by line." Selena held up a page, frowning. "It's here, buried in subsection 12D, masked as standard language about business continuity." She began reading aloud. "In the event of public disruption or actions causing material reputational harm, emergency provisions activate to ensure operational stability." She trailed off, scanning further. "This is carefully crafted. The language looks boilerplate until you parse the implications." "What implications?" Simone asked, though her gut already knew. "It gives them multiple attack vectors. They can sue for damages, freeze any funds connected to the planned rollout, and force the whole dispute into private arbitration, where they pick the arbitrator." Selena's normally controlled expression showed hints of anger. "It's designed to drain your resources and keep everything out of public court." Naomi pulled up financial projections on her tablet. "The timing is surgical. We're 3 weeks from launching the new platform. Our capital is committed. If they freeze those accounts now—" The conference room phone rang, cutting her off. Board chair Leonard Voss's name flashed on the display. Simone put it on speaker. "Leonard, Dr. Rivers." His voice was tight, formal. "I've been fielding calls for the past hour. Major investors are—" concerned about tonight's events. The events where I was publicly assaulted? Simone kept her tone level. That's a rather dramatic characterization of what was clearly meant as playful interaction. Leonard coughed. These situations are better handled privately. Your reaction has created unnecessary instability. My reaction? Simone's fingers pressed into the armrest of her chair. Graham Wexley humiliated me in front of our entire donor base. He's practically a child, Leonard said dismissively. The appropriate response would have been to laugh it off. Instead, you've potentially damaged a crucial partnership. The board will need to discuss this first thing tomorrow. The elevator chimed outside, and Noah Klein hurried into the conference room. His tie was loose, but his manner was oddly composed for someone called in near midnight. I came as soon as I could, Noah said, setting his briefcase down. I've already drafted some potential responses to stabilize the situation. Simone studied her COO's face. There was something too rehearsed about his concern. The situation doesn't need stabilizing, she said carefully. It needs investigating, starting with how that addendum got into our contract. The priority should be calming the markets, Noah countered smoothly. I've prepared a statement suggesting temporary leadership adjustments to reassure investors. You prepared that rather quickly, Naomi observed. On the phone, Leonard cleared his throat. Noah's thinking strategically. A short-term leadership transition could help weather this storm. The only storm here is the one they manufactured, Simone said. Selena, I want a full audit of who approved that addendum language. Track every version, every email, every sign-off. Noah shifted slightly. That seems excessive for standard contract language. Standard? Selena's eyebrows rose. This clause is anything but standard. Someone had to specifically request and approve these terms. Naomi was already pulling up email records on her tablet. She paused, frowning. That's odd. Noah, you're copied on the final contract review thread from last week, but you said earlier you hadn't seen the addendum. A flicker of something crossed Noah's face before his helpful expression returned. I must have missed that email chain. Things have been quite busy with the rollout preparations. You responded to 3 other emails in that same thread, Naomi said quietly. The silence in the room grew heavy. Through the windows, a police helicopter swept past, its searchlight briefly illuminating their faces. Leonard's voice crackled through the speaker. Dr. Rivers, I strongly suggest you take a more cooperative approach. The Wexleys are a powerful family. This resistance will only make things more difficult than having cake ground into my face while donors laughed. Simone's voice was steel. Then having my reaction weaponized and my company threatened? The board expects your full cooperation tomorrow, Leonard said stiffly. Good night. The line went dead. Simone looked around the room, at Selena's carefully controlled anger, at Naomi's shrewd concern, at Noah's too-perfect composure. She touched her cheek one final time, where the frosting had marked her. They didn't smear cake, she said. They marked a target. The darkness before dawn painted Rivers Axis headquarters in shades of blue and gray. Simone's car pulled into the underground garage at 5 a.m., tires crunching over scattered protest flyers that had somehow already made their way down here. Her security detail reported crowds gathering above, a mix of actual community members and faces that seemed too polished, too coordinated to be spontaneous. They've got printed signs, her head of security said, showing her photos on his phone, all using the same 3 phrases. Rivers must go, no more toxic leaders, and protect our community. Mass-produced outrage, Simone noted, studying the identical fonts and formatting. The elevator carried them to the executive floor, where Naomi was already setting up in the main conference room, surrounded by financial reports and market projections. Morning News is running with the edited clip. Naomi said without looking up. Stocks down 12% in pre-market trading. They're efficient, Simone replied, hanging her coat. I'll give them that. The glass walls gave them a clear view as more employees arrived, clustering in worried groups. Simone's assistant hurried in, tablet in hand, face drawn with stress. Dr. Rivers, we've got a situation, she said. Someone posted my home address online last night. Other staff are reporting similar threats. Their children's school locations, personal phone numbers. It's all getting dumped on anonymous boards. Juno Park strode in before Simone could respond, carrying 3 laptops and wearing yesterday's clothes. The crisis PR specialist's eyes were sharp despite the early hour. This is coordinated, Juno announced, setting up their equipment. Look at the pattern. They pulled up multiple screens showing social media activity. The first wave hit within 3 minutes of the gala incident. Bot accounts, all created within the last month, pushing the edited video. Second wave came from influencer accounts at precisely 15-minute intervals. Then the anonymous former employees started appearing. How many real versus fake? Naomi asked. Based on metadata analysis? Juno's fingers flew across keyboards. About 15% organic engagement. The rest is manufactured outrage running on a pre-built network. They had this infrastructure ready before last night. Through the glass, Simone spotted Deke Ransom's broad shoulders entering the lobby below. The head of Wexley Security moved with casual menace, making a show of examining exits and security cameras. Here we go, Simone murmured. Her phone buzzed with a text from building security. Wexley Security, demanding access to all floors, citing public safety concerns due to protests. Classic pressure tactic, Juno said, reading over her shoulder. Create a crowd, then use that crowd to justify increased security presence. They want their eyes and ears inside your operation. They already have those, Naomi pointed out, pulling up an email. Board just called an emergency vote for 2 p.m. today. Too fast for proper notice requirements, but they're citing extraordinary circumstances. Who's pushing the vote? Simone asked. 3 members aligned with old money interests. They're proposing a temporary leadership transition until the current situation stabilizes. Naomi's air quotes dripped with disdain. Simone watched Deke positioning his people around the lobby's key points, by elevators, near stairs, covering all movement. His presence was a message. We can reach you anywhere. Naomi, Simone said quietly, I need you to implement spending freeze protocols. Lock down everything that isn't immediately essential, and quietly, very quietly, secure backup liquidity channels through our most reliable partners. Naomi was already moving. I'll route it through the subsidiary accounts they don't know about yet. Juno, Simone continued, I need documented proof of coordination. Timestamps, metadata, payment trails, anything showing this isn't organic backlash. Already mapping it, Juno replied. Their bot network left fingerprints. The question is whether we can prove intent before they strip our resources. The morning crawled by in a blur of crisis meetings and defensive measures. Simone's team tracked waves of attacks, more edited videos appearing, donor statements withdrawing support, community leaders suddenly receiving anonymous tips about concerns with Rivers Axis hiring practices. At precisely noon, a courier arrived with a thick envelope marked Urgent Legal Notice. Simone opened it, while Naomi read over her shoulder. The document was dense with legal language, but the meaning was clear. Wexley-affiliated partners were seeking an emergency injunction to freeze Rivers Axis accounts pending investigation of conduct-related contract violations. Simone set the papers down carefully. They want us too scared to breathe. The cold precision of it all, the timing, the multiple pressure points, the layered attacks, revealed the truth. Last night's humiliation wasn't improvised cruelty. It was the first move in a carefully planned siege. Through the windows, protesters' signs caught the midday sun, their identical fonts glinting like teeth. Deke Ransom stood among them, phone to his ear, smiling up at Simone's office with the patient satisfaction of someone who knew exactly how the trap would close. The afternoon sun blazed through the glass conference room, casting long shadows across the polished table where Rivers Axis's board members gathered. Simone straightened her jacket, a armor of tailored navy wool, and walked in with measured steps. 14 pairs of eyes tracked her movement, their usual respectful nods replaced with the clinical assessment reserved for problems requiring disposal. Leonard Voss occupied the chairman's seat like a throne, his silver hair catching the light as he leaned forward with practiced concern. "Dr. Rivers, thank you for joining us on such short notice. Given the circumstances, we felt immediate action was necessary. The circumstances being a coordinated attack on our company," Simone said, taking her seat. Naomi settled beside her, tablet ready, while Selina Ward arranged legal documents with precise movements. "The circumstances," Leonard emphasized, "being a public relations crisis that threatens investor confidence." He gestured to a screen showing Rivers Axis's plummeting stock price. "We have a fiduciary duty to protect shareholder value." Board member Victoria Hayes, who had never challenged Leonard in 10 years, spoke up with suspicious readiness. "The media coverage is concerning. The viral video raises questions about temperament and judgment." "An edited video," Selina interjected, "deliberately manipulated to create a false narrative. Perception becomes reality in the market," said James Morrison, another board member who typically stayed silent. "We need to consider temporary leadership adjustments while this situation stabilizes." Simone noted how they echoed each other's phrasing. Temporary, stabilize, protect value. Words chosen to sound reasonable while disguising their intent. The coordination was obvious to anyone paying attention. "Let's be direct," Simone said. "You're suggesting I step aside because someone assaulted me on camera and then manipulated the footage to paint me as the aggressor." "We're suggesting," Leonard replied smoothly, "that the company needs a clear path forward that doesn't involve public controversy. A brief leadership transition would allow tensions to cool." Noah Klein spoke up from his corner seat, voice gentle as a knife wrapped in silk. "I could serve as interim CEO if needed. My relationships with our partners are strong, and I have no connection to last night's unfortunate events." Simone turned to study him. Noah kept his eyes down, radiating helpful concern, but something in his careful posture raised warnings. "Before we discuss transitions," she said, "I want to know how the continuity addendum made it into our contract without full board review. Who approved that language?" The room shifted uncomfortably. Leonard cleared his throat. "Contract details are handled through appropriate channels. The relevant committees—" "I'd like to see the email logs," Simone cut in. "All communications regarding the addendum's approval process." "That would involve private board correspondence," Victoria objected. "We have confidentiality obligations," while simultaneously demanding complete transparency from me, Simone noted. The hypocrisy landed like a physical blow. Several board members had the grace to look uncomfortable, but others met her gaze with blank corporate politeness, the kind that masked whatever deals had already been made. Selina stood, commanding attention. "Before this discussion continues, I need to remind the board of several legal considerations. First, removing Dr. Rivers in response to a manufactured crisis could be seen as validating a coordinated smear campaign. Second, any leadership change without proper investigation of last night's events creates liability concerns. Third, there are serious questions about the contract addendum's approval process that need to be addressed." "We're not removing anyone," Leonard said smoothly. We're discussing temporary measures to protect company interests. By suggesting the CEO step aside because she was publicly assaulted, Naomi's voice cut through the corporate doublespeak. How does that protect our interests? The optics, James began. The optics, Simone interrupted, are that Rivers' Axis caves to pressure when its leaders face targeted harassment. Is that the message this board wants to send? Leonard's mask of concern cracked slightly, revealing irritation beneath. I move we proceed to a vote on temporary leadership transition. I move we table that vote pending full investigation, Selina countered. Any hasty action now exposes the company to significant legal risk. The tension stretched as board members glanced at each other, measuring which way to lean. Simone watched the subtle signals, who looked to Leonard for cues, who avoided eye contact entirely. The room felt like a chessboard where half the pieces had been secretly replaced. All in favor of proceeding with the vote? Leonard asked. Hands rose, 7 out of 15. Not enough for an immediate move, but far too many for comfort. Simone noted each face, each allegiance revealed. Motion fails, Leonard announced, unable to fully hide his frustration. We'll reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for a full board review and second vote. As chairs scraped back and members began gathering their things, Noah lingered behind. He stopped near Simone, voice pitched low. You can't win this their way. Simone watched him walk out, those words hanging in the air like smoke, unclear whether they were meant as advice or warning. The afternoon sun had shifted, throwing the empty conference room into shadow. In the glass walls, she caught her reflection. Still straight-backed, still dignified, still fighting. Naomi touched her arm. 7 votes to remove you already. We need to move fast. Yes, Simone said, gathering her papers. But first I want to know exactly how deep this rot goes. The setting sun painted long shadows across the community center's parking lot as Simone's car pulled up. The brick building stood warm and welcoming against the darkening sky, its windows glowing with activity. Young voices drifted out, the sound of learning, of possibility. But something was wrong with this picture. 3 black SUVs were parked at odd angles near the entrance, their tinted windows reflecting the last rays of sunlight. Men in tactical gear loitered nearby, earpieces glinting. Wexley security logos marked their shoulders. They're not even trying to be subtle anymore, Naomi muttered from the passenger seat. Simone took a deep breath, centered herself. That's the point. They want us to see the muscle. As they stepped out of the car, she noted how the guards shifted, subtle movements to control sight lines and access points. Their presence transformed a community space into contested territory. Deke Ransom emerged from behind one of the SUVs, his broad frame blocking the path to the door. Evening, ma'am, he said with exaggerated politeness. Just maintaining public safety. At a youth center? Simone kept her voice neutral. Can't be too careful these days. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Lot of concerning activity in the area. Before Simone could respond, movement caught her attention. A young man in Rivers' Axis apprentice gear, Malik Turner, she recognized him from the program, was walking toward the entrance, laptop bag over his shoulder. 2 guards stepped directly into his path. Hold up there, son, one called out. Need to check that bag. Malik stopped, his whole body tensing. I work here. I'm in the apprenticeship program. Sure you are. The guard gestured impatiently. Bag on the ground, please. Empty your pockets, too. Simone's hand tightened on her phone, deliberately activating the camera. She held it low, recording without drawing attention. Around them, other students and community members slowed, watching, exactly what the guards wanted. This wasn't about safety. It was about showing who had power to stop who could be searched without cause, who had to prove they belonged. I have ID, Malik said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands as he pulled out his wallet. "I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday." "Uh-huh." The guard barely glanced at the ID before tossing it back. Bag. Ground. Now. Reverend Lucinda Hale emerged from the center's doors like a force of nature. Her gray hair was pulled back severely, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. She moved with the confidence of someone who had faced down worse than private security. "What seems to be the problem with one of my students?" Her voice carried calm authority. Deke stepped forward. "Standard security procedure, Reverend. Nothing to concern yourself with." "In my center? Without my permission?" Reverend Hale positioned herself between Malik and the guards. "I don't recall authorizing searches of my young people." "Ma'am, we have authorization from the property management company to—" "You have authorization to intimidate children?" Simone spoke up, still recording. "To harass program participants?" Deke's practiced smile tightened. "Now, Dr. Rivers, no need to get emotional about standard safety protocols. I'd like the names and badge numbers of everyone involved in this stop," Simone said evenly. "Ma'am, if you're going to be hostile, requesting basic accountability is hostile." Simone kept her tone measured, professional. Interesting definition. Malik still hadn't moved, his laptop bag clutched tight. The guards loomed closer, trying to provoke a reaction they could use. Reverend Hale touched his shoulder gently. "Baby, go on inside," she said. "These men were just leaving." "But they can't just—" Malik's voice shook with rage, not fear. "They can, and they do," Reverend Hale said quietly. "But not today, not here. Go on now." Simone watched Malik's face, saw the familiar struggle between dignity and survival, between standing up and staying safe. He was learning the wrong lesson, that his achievements didn't matter, that no amount of hard work could protect him from people who saw his existence as a threat. The guards exchanged looks, realizing they weren't getting the confrontation they wanted. Deke made a small gesture, and they backed off, returning to their positions by the SUVs. "Just doing our jobs," Deke said smoothly. "No offense intended." "Every offense was intended," Reverend Hale replied. "That's rather the point, isn't it?" Inside the center's main room, the tension didn't fully dissipate. Students huddled in small groups, voices low, shooting worried glances at the windows where guard shadows moved past. Malik sat at a computer station, his movements still tight with contained anger. Reverend Hale led Simone and Naomi to her office, closing the door with a decisive click. The small room was warm, filled with books and photographs, decades of community history on the walls. "They've been doing this for weeks," she said, settling behind her desk. "Ever since the partnership announcement. Testing boundaries, establishing presence. This isn't about security. It's about control." "The deal wasn't just about money, was it?" Simone asked. Reverend Hale's eyes were tired, but fierce. "It never is with families like the Wexleys. Money they have. What they want is power. Over spaces, over stories, over who gets to feel safe where." Through the office window, Simone could see Malik helping a younger student with coding homework. His shoulders still tight, but his focus absolute. He refused to be driven away from his own growth. "We're not losing twice," Simone said firmly. "Not the company, and not this space." The fluorescent lights of Jimmy's all-night diner buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the worn leather booths. At this hour, the place was nearly empty, perfect for conversations that needed privacy. Simone sat in the corner booth, stirring untouched coffee while investigator Reese Dalton spread documents across the Formica table. "Your gut was right," Reese said, his voice low and measured. He slid over a stack of financial records. "These shell companies, Liberty Metro Solutions, Apex Digital Dynamics, Westbrook Consulting Group, They're all registered through different agents, different states. But the money flows back to one source. Simone studied the highlighted transfers. The Wexleys. Through about 6 layers of cutouts, yes. Reese tapped a series of timestamps. What's interesting is the pattern. Every time there's a major real estate acquisition or infrastructure project in target neighborhoods, these companies suddenly get very active. They hire community outreach specialists and digital marketing firms. A laptop screen flickered to life at the edge of the table. Juno Park's face appeared in a secure video window, their quick fingers typing as they spoke. "And those firms are busy little bees," Juno said. "I've been mapping the bot networks and influence campaigns. Check this out." Their screen filled with a visualization, hundreds of interconnected nodes pulsing with activity. "See these clusters? They look random at first glance, like organic traffic. But the timing is too perfect. The language patterns are too consistent. Someone's conducting the chaos," Simone said. "Exactly. And they're good. Really good. They know how to make manufactured outrage feel authentic. But there are signatures." Juno highlighted several nodes. "These accounts? They activate in precise sequences. Different names, different profile pictures, but the same underlying code. Someone trained in social engineering built this system." The diner's bell chimed. Reverend Lucinda Hale entered, carrying a weathered leather notebook. She slid into the booth beside Simone, her presence bringing gravity to the gathering. "I brought what you asked for," Hale said, placing the notebook on the table. "Been keeping these records for 12 years. Nobody else was watching, so I did." Simone opened the notebook carefully. Inside, in Hale's precise handwriting, were dates, names, amounts, notes about charitable donations to neighborhood programs, followed by eviction notices 2 months later. Construction permits granted the day after emergency board meetings. Community leaders who changed their positions after private meetings about their children's college funds. Here, Hale pointed to an entry from 3 years ago. The Wexleys donated $500,000 to preserve historic architecture in the Hamilton district. 2 weeks later, 17 small businesses got notice their leases wouldn't be renewed. All Black-owned, all replaced by luxury boutiques within 6 months. "The donation was cover," Reese observed. "It's always cover," Hale said. "They don't just buy buildings. They buy the story about the buildings. They don't just take spaces. They change who feels welcome in those spaces. Your company wasn't just a business target, Dr. Rivers. They want your data, your infrastructure contracts, because that's how they'll know where to move next." Simone turned another page in Hale's notebook. "You documented everything?" "Had to, because every time someone spoke up, the same pattern played out. Sudden scandals, social media attacks, private security showing up at their doors with concerns. Sound familiar?" Juno's typing grew more intense. "Speaking of patterns, I'm seeing elevated bot activity right now. They're preparing something." Simone's phone buzzed. A text from Naomi. "Server logs show unauthorized access night of gala. Internal credentials used. Someone was in our system before it all went down." "An inside job," Reese said quietly. "Not just inside," Simone replied. "Someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Someone who understood both our technical infrastructure and our governance vulnerabilities." The group fell silent as a tired waitress refilled their coffee cups. When she moved away, Hale spoke again, her voice carrying decades of stored truth. "This is bigger than one night, one incident," she said. "That cake wasn't just about humiliating you. It was about showing everyone else what happens when you don't play by their rules. But rules only work when people accept them." Juno's screen flashed with new data. The bot network is shifting. They're positioning for some kind of narrative pivot. Reese gathered his documents with methodical care. "We need to move carefully. They've built layers of deniability into everything. Then we'll peel back every layer, Simone said. She touched Hale's notebook gently. You kept these records because you knew someday they'd matter. Now they do. She stood, sliding the notebook into her bag. The diner's lights caught the determination in her eyes. We're going to tell the truth so loudly they can't bury it. Across town, in his perfectly curated home office, Graham Wexley adjusted his camera and practiced his most sincere expression. He recorded take after take until the apology video felt right. Humble, but not weak. Regretful, but not guilty. As he posted it to his verified accounts, his other screens showed the real work. Thousands of coordinated posts flooding every platform, shaping the story even as he appeared to apologize for it. His manufactured contrition went live at exactly 11 p.m., timed to make morning headlines, crafted to make him look mature and thoughtful. And in its shadow, his digital army attacked with renewed fury, targeting not just Simone, but anyone who dared support her. Early morning sunlight streamed through Simone's office windows as her core team assembled. The city was just waking up, but they'd been working for hours, fueled by determination and strong coffee. Juno Park's laptop displayed frame-by-frame analysis of the newly acquired video footage. "Look at this," Juno said, zooming in on a perfect, unobstructed angle. "Crystal clear. No editing tricks possible. You can see Graham's expression change right before he does it. That split second of predatory satisfaction." Simone leaned closer to watch. The footage showed everything. Graham's calculated approach, the cake smearing across her face, and, most importantly, Tilden and Maribel Wexley's immediate laughter. Their reactions proved premeditation. They'd expected it, encouraged it. "The metadata's clean too," Juno continued, pulling up a technical report. "Original timestamp, location data, device information, all intact. They can't claim this was manipulated." Naomi paced by the window, phone pressed to her ear. She ended her call with a rare smile. Catherine Chen from Meridian Capital is willing to go on record. Says she's seen enough country club bullying in her career. She'll back you publicly and commit to maintaining their position. "That's significant," Selena said, looking up from her legal documents. "Meridian holds what, 12%? 14, Naomi confirmed. And they have influence with other institutional investors." Selena spread papers across the conference table, each stack precisely organized. "I've drafted the injunction request. We're hitting them from multiple angles: harassment, market manipulation, coordinated defamation. The evidence of their bot network is particularly damning." "Timeline?" Simone asked. "We file everything within the hour. The press conference gives us qualified privilege for the initial disclosure, then we follow immediately with court submissions." Selena checked her watch. Local news crews are already setting up downstairs. For the first time in days, the tension in Simone's shoulders began to ease. She looked at her team: Naomi's quiet competence, Juno's technical precision, Selena's legal expertise. They'd worked through the night, building an airtight case. "We're not just defending ourselves anymore," Simone said. "We're exposing their whole system." Juno's screens showed real-time analytics. Social sentiment is already shifting. People are asking questions about Graham's apology video, noticing the convenient timing, the manufactured responses. "The stock's stabilizing too," Naomi added, "once Catherine speaks." A commotion erupted in the outer office. Heavy footsteps approached. The door opened and 3 federal agents entered, badges displayed. Behind them, Noah Klein stood in the doorway, his face a mask of practiced concern. "Dr. Rivers," the lead agent said, "I'm Agent Carroll with the Financial Crimes Division. We're here regarding allegations of serious data privacy violations." Selena stepped forward. "I'm Rivers' Axis General Counsel. What's the nature of these allegations?" We have evidence of unauthorized data collection and misuse of personal information. Carol produced a document. This complaint was filed internally through proper channels. We're executing an immediate freeze on corporate accounts pending investigation. Naomi's phone buzzed. The banks. Everything's locked. Payroll, operations, all of it. Juno's fingers flew across their keyboard. They're blocking system access, too. Critical servers are being restricted. Selena snatched the complaint, scanning rapidly. Her expression darkened. This filing, the authorization signature. She turned to Noah. You submitted this? Noah straightened his tie, every movement deliberate. As Chief Operating Officer, I have a responsibility to report potential violations. When I discovered irregularities— What irregularities? Simone's voice cut through his practiced speech. Show me exactly what you found. The details are in my filing, Noah said smoothly. I was trying to protect the company from potential liability. These issues required immediate attention. You're lying. Simone stood, calm fury radiating from her stillness. You've been lying for months, haven't you? Working for them? Noah's smile didn't reach his eyes. I was trying to protect the company. Reporters began gathering outside the building. Phones rang unanswered throughout the office. Employees stood in clusters, whispering anxiously about frozen accounts and system lockouts. Hours crawled by in a blur of crisis calls and emergency meetings. The press conference collapsed before it began. Catherine Chen regretfully withdrew her support, citing developing concerns. The stock price fell like a stone. Evening shadows lengthened across Simone's office. She sat alone, staring at her phone. Social media exploded with that damned photo. Her face smeared with frosting, now edited into countless cruel memes, each one tagged with Graham's signature. A smirking emoji. The betrayal cut deep. Noah had been her COO for 3 years. He'd sat in this very office countless times, planning strategy, sharing concerns, always so helpful, so supportive. Every suggestion, every introduction, every policy change, all of it designed to create this moment. Her phone buzzed with a text from Reverend Hale. Meet me tonight. I have the missing piece. The community center stood dark against the night sky, its windows reflecting scattered streetlight through sheets of rain. Simone parked around back, away from the main street, and hurried through the downpour to the service entrance, where Reverend Hale waited. You came alone? Hale asked, ushering her inside. As requested. Simone followed her through the quiet hallways. Juno and Investigator Dalton are joining remotely. The back room was small but secure. No windows, one door, and thick concrete walls that had withstood decades of neighborhood change. A laptop sat open on a folding table, screens showing Juno and Reese in separate windows. The rain's steady tapping filtered through the ceiling, marking time like a metronome. Reverend Hale locked the door and pulled a worn leather portfolio from her desk drawer. Before I show you this, you need to understand something. People think the Wexleys built their fortune on real estate and finance. That's not quite right. She removed an envelope sealed with aged tape. They built it on silence, on making problems disappear. What kind of problems? Simone asked. People who wouldn't sell. Reporters who asked questions. Community leaders who fought back. Hale's eyes held old anger. Anyone who stood in their way. She produced a USB drive, its label faded but still legible. A date from 6 years ago. This came to me from someone who couldn't stay quiet anymore. I've kept it safe, waiting for the right moment, and the right person, to use it. Juno leaned closer to their camera. What's on it? A deposition. From someone who helped build their machine. Hale inserted the drive into the laptop. He was one of their reputation consultants before that title existed. When he realized what they were really doing, he recorded everything. 3 weeks later, he died in a single car accident. A video file appeared on screen. Juno began running authentication protocols immediately. The metadata looks original. No signs of tampering. "I'm creating verified hashes now." The recording showed a man in his 50s, speaking directly to camera. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly as he detailed a systematic operation. Shell companies layered within shell companies, each designed to distance the Wexleys from their tactics. He described how they'd perfected their methods: paid protesters, coordinated social media campaigns, edited footage that could make anyone look unstable. They called it narrative adjustment, the man explained, but it was destruction. They'd identify acquisition targets, usually minority-owned businesses that had something they wanted. Then they'd engineer a crisis, manipulate public opinion, and swoop in to buy at panic prices. Reese took notes rapidly. These intermediary companies he's naming, they match the patterns in your records, Reverend. Same shells, same players, just cycling through different front names. "The cake incident," Simone said quietly. "It wasn't random cruelty. It was choreographed. They needed a trigger point." "Keep watching," Hale advised. The deposition continued. The man described their placement program, identifying promising executives, grooming them with offers and introductions, then embedding them in target companies. These plants would spend years building trust, gathering intelligence, and creating subtle vulnerabilities in corporate governance. "Noah," Simone breathed. "That's what he was. A placement." Juno's typing grew more intense. "It fits. I'm tracking his career path before Rivers Axis. He worked for 3 different firms with Wexley connections. Each one went through a hostile takeover within 18 months of his departure. The federal complaint he filed," Reese added, "it's almost identical to complaints filed against those other companies. Same structure, same timing, same outcome. Accounts frozen just when the target company was about to expose something." Rain drummed harder overhead as Simone absorbed the implications. Every meeting with Noah, every casual suggestion, every policy change he'd advocated, all of it designed to create openings for this moment. He hadn't just betrayed her trust. He'd spent years building a trap. "There's more," Hale said, spreading documents from her notebook across the table. "These dates here, each one marks when a Wexley-linked security firm showed up in the neighborhood. Always after some incident that never made the news. Always before property values suddenly dropped and long-time owners had to sell." Simone studied the pattern. "Like Deke Ransom at the gala. They use security as intimidation, then call the targets unstable for objecting." "Exactly," Hale confirmed. "And these names here? Community leaders who pushed back. Each one faced anonymous harassment campaigns, social media attacks, edited videos, personal information leaked. Sound familiar?" "It's their playbook," Reese observed. "They've refined it over years." The cake incident wasn't improvised. It was just the most public version of what they've always done. Juno's screen filled with verification data. The deposition's authenticity checks out. File creation date matches the label. No signs of manipulation. This is primary source evidence of a long-term criminal enterprise. Simone stood, decision crystallizing. She pulled out her phone and dialed Selena Ward's number. The rain seemed to pause with her as she waited for her attorney to answer. "Selena, stop trying to win in public first. We're going to win in court. And then let the public watch them fall." The federal building's conference room could have been anywhere. Beige walls, institutional carpeting, fluorescent lights that made everything look flat and tired. But at 7 a.m., with case files stacked in precise towers across the table, it felt like neutral ground, a place where truth might actually matter. Simone watched Agent Mara Quinn review the first document set, her expression giving nothing away. The federal investigator's dark suit and steady hands spoke of someone who'd seen powerful people try to charm their way out of consequences before. "Let's be clear," Quinn said, looking up from a particularly dense financial record. "You're alleging systematic corporate fraud, market manipulation, and coordinated harassment through shell entities." "We're not alleging," Selina Ward replied, sliding another folder forward. "We're demonstrating, with timestamps, banking records, and verified metadata." Simone maintained her composure as Quinn examined the USB drive containing the deposition. The weight of the last few days pressed against her shoulders, but she refused to let it show. This wasn't about emotion. It was about evidence. "The shell company network is structured in layers," Naomi explained, spreading out a diagram. "Each entity exists just long enough to execute an acquisition or pressure campaign, then dissolves. But the payment patterns are consistent." Quinn's pen moved steadily across her notepad. "And you can prove these entities connect directly to the Wexleys through board memberships, shared addresses, and recurring transfers," Naomi confirmed. "We've mapped 5 years of activity showing the same operational signatures." Selina opened her laptop, pulling up the gala footage. The recent incident wasn't isolated. It followed their established pattern: create public humiliation, manipulate the narrative, then exploit the chaos for acquisition. The unedited video played silently. Graham's calculated approach, the cake impact, the practiced laughter from his parents. Quinn watched without comment, but her jaw tightened slightly at the room's reaction to the assault. "We have the edited version they distributed as well," Simone added. "Juno Park's forensic analysis shows it was altered within minutes of the incident, using software licensed to one of their shell companies." "And this ties to the previous pattern?" Quinn asked. "Yes." Simone handed over Reverend Hale's notebook. "These dates and names document similar incidents: security intimidation, coordinated harassment, and forced property sales. The same tactics, just usually hidden from cameras." Quinn studied the notebook carefully. "This is detailed record-keeping." "Reverend Hale understood what documentation meant," Simone said. "She knew someone would need proof someday." Naomi's phone buzzed. She checked it and frowned. "Leonard Voss just called an emergency board meeting for 2 p.m. The agenda lists leadership stability measures." "They're moving faster than expected," Selina observed. "Likely because they know we're here." Quinn set down her pen. "You understand I can't intervene in board proceedings. Any investigation will take time to develop, and it won't protect you from immediate corporate action." "We know," Simone replied. "That's why we've prepared parallel strategies." Naomi pulled up another document on her tablet. "We've discovered something critical about the federal complaint Noah Klein filed. He didn't just submit it. He used Simone's emergency authorization token to do it." "Meaning?" Quinn asked. "He staged her digital fingerprint," Selina explained. "The complaint appears to come from Simone herself, suggesting instability. It's fraud, but proving that won't happen fast enough to stop the board vote. So we're filing for an immediate temporary restraining order," Simone continued. "The evidence of Noah's deception, combined with the documented pattern of targeting, should be enough to pause any removal attempt while the broader investigation proceeds." Quinn nodded slowly. "Logical approach. But the Wexleys' influence runs deep. Are you prepared for how they might retaliate?" "We're beyond preparation," Simone said. "We're acting. Juno is coordinating a legal-compliant livestream of the board meeting. Everything in the open, everything by the book. Transparency as a shield," Selina added. "No emotional appeals, just documented facts presented under proper observation." Agent Quinn gathered the files into her briefcase, movements precise and methodical. "I'll verify everything independently. If it holds up, and I suspect it will, This goes well beyond a single company dispute. Simone stood, smoothing her jacket with steady hands. The fluorescent lights still hummed, but the room felt different now. The evidence towers had served their purpose, not as pleas for help, but as foundation stones for justice. "Dr. Rivers," Quinn said as they prepared to leave, "if your evidence holds, you're not the target anymore." Simone met her eyes directly. "Good, because I'm done being hunted." She stepped into the hallway where Naomi waited with their next set of files. The morning sun slanted through nearby windows, catching dust motes in bars of light. In a few hours, they would face the board. But now they carried something stronger than outrage. They had proof. And proof, properly structured, was harder to dismiss than any protest. Selina checked her watch. "The TRO filing is ready. Shall we proceed?" "Yes," Simone said. "It's time to show them what happens when they mistake documentation for weakness." The Wexley Tower stretched into the afternoon sky like a glass dagger, its reflective surface casting sharp shadows across the city below. On the 47th floor, Simone and Selina were escorted into a conference suite, where floor-to-ceiling windows made the room feel exposed, vulnerable. Tilden Wexley sat at the head of the massive table, perfectly tailored in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Maribel perched beside him, her pearl necklace catching the light as she offered a practiced smile. Graham lounged in his chair, scrolling through his phone with performative boredom. Deke Ransom stood by the door, arms crossed, his security badge gleaming. His presence was meant to remind everyone who controlled the space. "Dr. Rivers." Tilden's voice carried that particular tone of false warmth reserved for surrender negotiations. "Thank you for being reasonable about this meeting." Simone took her seat with deliberate calm, Selina beside her with a slim recording device visible on the table. "Before we begin," Selina said, "we need to establish consent for recording. This is a standard legal requirement." "Oh, surely that's not necessary for a friendly discussion." Maribel laughed softly. "It's non-negotiable," Simone stated. Selina proceeded with clinical precision. "For the record, please state your name and verbal consent to audio recording of this meeting." One by one, they complied, perhaps amused by what they saw as pointless formality. Tilden first, then Maribel, Graham rolling his eyes as he gave his name, even Deke from his position by the door. "Now then," Tilden spread his hands on the polished table, "we've prepared a very generous exit package, full market value for your shares, plus a comfort premium. You can walk away with dignity intact." Maribel nodded encouragingly. "And if you'd consider a brief statement, just expressing regret for any misunderstandings, it would help smooth things over with the public." "The public," Graham snorted, finally setting down his phone. "They're so easy to move. Watch this." He pulled up a social media dashboard on his tablet. "See these trending topics? I can flip them in an hour. It's like conducting an orchestra of idiots." "Graham," Maribel warned, but her son was on a roll. "No, Mom, let me show them how it works. It's actually pretty brilliant." He leaned forward, animated now. "You start with a few key accounts, influencers who'll say anything for the right price. Then you amplify with bot networks, edit some clips to match the narrative, and suddenly everyone's sure they know what really happened." "It's quite impressive," Tilden said proudly. "Graham has a natural talent for digital perception management." "That's what you're calling it?" Simone asked quietly. "I call it winning," Graham shrugged. "People believe what they're told to believe. Watch. I could probably make half the internet think you robbed a bank by dinner time." Deke shifted his weight by the door, a subtle reminder of consequences. "The point is," Tilden continued smoothly, "public opinion has already settled. The continuity addendum gives us clear legal grounds to proceed with acquisition. We included that provision specifically to handle Situations like this. Situations where someone needs to learn their place? Simone's voice remained steady. Situations requiring decisive action, Tilden corrected. The addendum provides a clean mechanism for transferring control when leadership becomes unstable. We really did hope you'd be more cooperative about the partnership, Maribel sighed. The cake incident was meant to be a teaching moment. Graham laughed. Come on, it was funny. And it worked perfectly. Got exactly the reaction we needed to trigger the clause. The clause you built in advance, Simone noted. Of course we did, Tilden said. That's just good business practice. Always have a backup plan for dealing with difficult elements. Deke took a step closer to the table, his presence a looming threat. I think we're done here, Simone said, standing. You should sit back down, Deke suggested, his tone carrying years of practiced intimidation. No, I don't think I will. Simone gathered her belongings with careful movements. Go ahead, Graham called after her, laughter in his voice. The public already chose. They chose us. They always do. Simone walked to the door without looking back, Selina following with the recorders safely secured. Neither woman spoke until they reached the elevator, leaving the Wexleys to their assumed victory. As the doors closed, Deke's shadow still visible in the hallway, Simone finally allowed herself to exhale. The recording device in Selina's briefcase held every word, every admission, every threat, exactly as planned. But they weren't finished yet. The real work was still to come. They descended past floor after floor of polished glass and steel, the empire the Wexleys had built through fear and manipulation. But empires could fall, especially when their rulers became too comfortable with their own power to guard their tongues. The lobby's marble floors echoed under their heels as they walked out into the afternoon sun. Behind them, the tower cast its long shadow across the street, but Simone stepped purposefully into the light. They had what they came for. Now it was time to use it. The Rivers Axis Technologies boardroom hummed with tension as evening shadows stretched across the city. Board members filed in, some in person, others connecting remotely, their faces tiled across the massive display screen. Leonard Voss adjusted his tie, a subtle tell of discomfort as he noticed the professional camera setup in the corner. Juno Park sat at their workstation, fingers moving with practiced precision across multiple screens. Corporate live stream initiated. All security protocols verified. Broadcasting in 3, 2. This is absolutely inappropriate, Leonard interrupted, rising from his chair. We cannot conduct sensitive board business under these conditions. Selina Ward stepped forward, document in hand. Actually, Mr. Voss, we not only can, we must. I've filed a temporary restraining order regarding board actions, citing shareholder interests. Given the current situation, transparency isn't optional. She gestured to the camera. This is a verified corporate channel, following all SEC guidelines for public companies under review. Noah Klein shifted in his seat, his usual smooth demeanor showing cracks. Perhaps we should discuss this privately first. No more private discussions, Simone stated, her voice carrying the weight of too many closed-door ambushes. She nodded to Juno, who activated the main presentation screen. The unedited gala footage played first. The room watched in complete silence as Graham Wexley's assault unfolded without clever cuts or manipulated audio. Several board members flinched at the raw cruelty of it, seeing the truth without the sanitizing filter of social media spin. Now, Simone continued, let's examine what followed. She clicked to the next slide as Naomi distributed documents to each board member. Receipt after receipt appeared. Bot network purchases, coordinated timing of paid posts, shell company transfers that created the illusion of organic outrage. The data was meticulous, each transaction tied to specific attacks on Rivers Axis and its leadership. This isn't just about cake, Simone explained. It's about a systematic attempt to devalue and seize control of this company through manufactured crisis. Leonard tried to interject. Dr. Rivers, your tone is backed by evidence, Selina cut in smoothly. She activated an audio clip from the settlement meeting, Graham Wexley's voice filling the room with unmistakable pride as he detailed his manipulation techniques. Several investors on the video call leaned closer to their cameras. One unmuted to ask, "Is he admitting to securities fraud?" "Among other things," Selina confirmed. "The full recording has been provided to relevant authorities." Noah maintained his composed facade, though his fingers drummed a nervous pattern on the table. "This is all circumstantial. We need to focus on stabilizing—" "Interesting choice of words," Naomi interrupted, bringing up a new screen. "Let's talk about stability and system access." Complex log data filled the display. These are the authentication records from our secure servers. Note the pattern of access using Dr. Rivers' emergency authorization token. She highlighted specific entries. The token was used to approve the federal complaint filing at 3:47 a.m. from an IP address matching Mr. Klein's home network. Dr. Rivers was in a documented meeting at that time with multiple witnesses. Color drained from Noah's face. "That's not the same token," Naomi continued relentlessly, "was used to transfer sensitive documents to external servers registered to Wexley shell companies. The device signatures match your personal laptop, Noah, the one you're typing on right now." A board member unmuted. "Mr. Klein, is this accurate?" Noah's practiced calm cracked completely. "You don't understand the pressure they—" "Actually," Simone said quietly, "we understand perfectly." Selina stood. "I move to terminate Noah Klein's employment for cause, effective immediately, and refer evidence of his actions to prosecutors for review." "I second," Naomi stated firmly. Leonard looked desperately around the room, searching for allies, but found none. The evidence was too clear, the betrayal too complete. "We'll need to vote." "Yes," Simone agreed. "We will, transparently. Right now." The vote was not close. Security waited outside the boardroom, having been notified in advance. They approached with professional courtesy, as Noah was stripped of his credentials and escorted from the building. The live stream caught every moment. The same unblinking lens that had broadcast Simone's humiliation now documented accountability in action. Leonard's phone began to vibrate. Then other phones joined in, creating a chorus of incoming messages. Partners were calling, investors demanding explanations, donors frantically trying to distance themselves from the Wexley connection. Through it all, Simone remained seated, hands steady on the table. She watched as the room's power dynamics realigned around the weight of truth rather than the shadow of influence. For the first time since the gala, she allowed herself a full breath, feeling the bands of pressure around her chest finally begin to loosen. "Dr. Rivers," an investor spoke from the screen, "I believe we owe you an apology." "No," Simone replied. "You owe this company your vigilance. The truth was always there. We just had to be willing to see it." Naomi squeezed her friend's shoulder as board members began gathering their things, some avoiding eye contact, others offering awkward nods of acknowledgement. The live stream ended, but its impact was already rippling through social media, group chats, and news alerts, this time without manipulation, without artificial amplification, just the clean, sharp light of consequences illuminating the darkness of entrenched power. Morning sunlight streamed through the community center's windows, catching dust motes in golden beams. Simone sat at a worn table, watching Reverend Hale pour coffee with the same careful attention she gave everything, like even the smallest acts carried weight. "You take yours black, if I remember right," Hale said, sliding a steaming mug across the scratched surface. "Always have." Simone wrapped her hands around the warmth, anchoring herself in this moment of quiet before the storm fully broke. On the wall-mounted TV, a news ticker crawled with updates. The center's regular morning crowd gathered in small clusters, their usual chatter punctuated by gasps and pointing at screens. Every phone buzzed with notifications as the story exploded across networks, this time driven by facts, not manipulation. Agent Mara Quinn strode through the door, her presence carrying the gravity of official action. "Dr. Rivers, the warrants are being executed as we speak." She accepted a coffee from Hale with a grateful nod. "Multiple shell companies, digital assets, linked accounts, all frozen pending investigation." "How many shells did you find?" Simone asked. "More than 30 so far." "The network goes deeper than even your evidence suggested." Quinn's phone lit up with another update. "They're hitting the main Wexley offices now." Malik Turner burst in, still wearing his apprenticeship badge, practically vibrating with energy. "Did you see? They're live-streaming it at the Garden Club." He pulled up a news feed on his phone, gathering everyone around. The footage showed the Wexleys' carefully orchestrated redemption luncheon dissolving into chaos. Society photographers who'd come for staged apologies instead captured Tilden Wexley's practiced smile, crumbling as federal agents appeared at the edges of the frame. His face shifted from confusion to realization to barely contained panic, each moment preserved in high-definition clarity. "Watch Maribel," Hale murmured, pointing to the screen's corner. Maribel Wexley stood frozen in designer silk, her perfect posture a statue of denial as longtime allies physically stepped away from her. Women who'd shared her charity boards and private boxes now turned their backs, phones already out to delete photos and untag connections. The room's temperature dropped degree by degree as decades of cultivated influence evaporated in real time. "Mom says half the donor board already resigned," Malik added, scrolling through updates. "They're all claiming they had no idea about anything." Graham appeared on screen next, his usual smirk replaced by something younger and less certain. He tried his practiced lines about youthful mistakes and learning experiences, but the reporters weren't playing along anymore. They had screenshots of his coordinated attack plans, timestamps of his late-night manipulation sessions, receipts for bought influence and manufactured consent. "What's happening to their accounts?" someone asked. Agent Quinn checked her tablet. "Complete lockdown. The same financial weapons they used against Rivers Axis are being applied to their own assets, legally, with full documentation of probable cause." She allowed herself a small smile. Turns out, evidence works better than intimidation. Simone stood, smoothing her jacket. "Speaking of evidence and consequences, Malik, could you join me for a moment? There's something we need to announce." They moved to the center's main hall, where media had gathered respectfully behind Hale's prescribed boundaries. Cameras focused as Simone stepped to the podium, Malik nearby. "Rivers Axis Technologies is pleased to announce a new partnership consortium," she began, her voice carrying easily through the space. "One built on ethical oversight and community benefit, maintaining our planned expansion without compromising our values." She outlined the structure: local stakeholders, transparent governance, distributed opportunity. Jobs weren't just safe, they were growing. The apprenticeship program would double its capacity. "And to demonstrate our commitment to long-term investment in talent," Simone continued, "we're establishing the Turner Innovation Scholarship, named for one of our most promising young team members." She turned to Malik, whose eyes widened. "Full tuition and guaranteed paid internship placement, with 20 spots reserved annually for students from this community." Malik's composed expression cracked into pure joy. Around him, phones lifted to capture the moment. Organic celebration, not manufactured outrage. Parents hugged their children. Teachers wiped tears. This wasn't just corporate news, it was hope made tangible. Questions flew from reporters about the Wexley's assets, about potential charges, about market impact. Simone answered with measured precision, neither gloating nor minimizing. She'd learned long ago that dignity was its own victory. As the crowd dispersed, Simone found herself outside the center's entrance with Malik and Reverend Hale. They watched students file past into morning classes, backpacks bouncing, futures a little brighter than yesterday. They thought humiliation was a leash, Simone said quietly, remembering frosting ground into her skin. Laughter meant to wound. Malik looked at her, understanding in his young face. And you snapped it. In the distance, sirens wailed. But this time, they were heading toward Wexley Towers, toward accountability, toward consequence. Justice, like coffee, was being served hot and black. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. On the screen, I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.